The first time my father called me a failure, I was 16. The 100th time, I was 34. Some things never changed in my family. My older brother, Ryan, was the golden child. He had a six-figure job, a beautiful house, and a talent for making my parents proud every time he walked into a room. My younger sister, Melissa, owned a trendy boutique and spent half her life posting pictures online about success and ambition. Then there was me, the son whose first business collapsed, the son who moved away, the son everyone whispered about when they thought he wasn't listening. To them, I was the cautionary tale, don't end up like Daniel. I heard it so often that eventually I stopped defending myself. What my family didn't know was that after my business failed 8 years ago, I rebuilt everything from scratch. While they laughed at my mistakes, I worked 18-hour days. While they mocked my dreams, I studied, learned, and started over. And while they assumed I was struggling, I quietly built a successful software company that generated more money in a month than most people earned in a year. I never told them. At first, it was because I wanted privacy. Later, it was because I wanted peace. The less they knew, the less they judged. At least that's what I told myself. The truth was that despite everything, I still wanted their approval. I still wanted my father to look at me the way he looked at Ryan. I still wanted my mother to stop introducing me as the son who's figuring things out. I still wanted to belong. Ironically, while they believed I was struggling, I had been quietly helping them for years. When my father lost his job during an economic downturn, I anonymously paid 3 months of their mortgage. When my mother's medical bills became overwhelming, I arranged for every invoice to be settled. When Melissa's boutique nearly closed, a mysterious investor appeared and saved the business. When Ryan's risky investment left him buried in debt, an anonymous payment cleared the balance. No one ever knew it was me. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because they were my family. No matter how they treated me, I loved them. That was my mistake. One Friday evening, I received a notification for a family video call. I almost ignored it. Family gatherings usually involved subtle insults disguised as jokes, but curiosity got the better of me. I clicked the link. The screen connected, but nobody noticed I had joined. Their cameras were on. Mine wasn't. At first, I thought I'd leave quietly. Then I heard my name. Daniel isn't joining. Melissa asked. Ryan laughed, probably busy failing at something. Everyone chuckled, even my mother. The sound hit harder than I expected. Then my father leaned back in his chair and shook his head. That boy has wasted every opportunity he's ever had. More laughter. My stomach tightened. Melissa smirked. Honestly, he's kind of pathetic. The room erupted again. Pathetic? The word echoed inside my head. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. These were the people whose bills I'd paid. The people whose home I'd saved. The people I'd protected without asking for anything in return. And this was who they thought I was. A joke, a disappointment, a failure. I stared at the screen as they continued talking, unaware I could hear every word. Something inside me broke that night. Not with anger, not with rage, with clarity. For the first time, I realized no amount of sacrifice would ever earn their respect. And as the laughter continued through my speakers, I quietly closed the call. None of them knew it. But that was the moment everything changed. I didn't sleep that night. The word pathetic kept replaying in my mind like a broken recording. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their smiling faces on that video call. Not strangers, not enemies. My family, the people I had spent years protecting. The people who never once asked how I was doing before deciding who I was. At 3 in the morning, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the city lights outside my window. For the first time in years, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Family Assistance. Inside were hundreds of records: bank transfers, mortgage payments, medical bills, emergency loans, school tuition, business investments. The total amount stared back at me, more than $680,000. I looked at the number and laughed bitterly. Not because of the money, because of what I'd believed. For years, I convinced myself that family was family. That someday they would understand. That someday they would see me. Instead, they saw a failure, a pathetic joke. I clicked through the records one by one. The first file was from 5 years earlier. My parents had been 2 weeks away from losing their house after my father lost his job. I remembered the panic in my mother's voice during one of our phone calls. "We don't know what we're going to do," she had whispered. The next morning, I paid their overdue mortgage through an anonymous trust account. A week later, my mother called me. "Can you believe it?" she'd said excitedly. "Some miracle happened." I remembered smiling. I never told her I was the miracle. Another file showed Melissa's boutique. She had borrowed money to expand too quickly. When sales collapsed, bankruptcy was only months away. I secretly purchased a minority share through an investment company and saved her business. A month later, she posted online about how hard work always pays off. She never knew whose hard work had actually saved her. Then there was Ryan, my perfect brother, the successful one. 3 years earlier, he had made a terrible investment. He lost nearly everything. His creditors were preparing legal action. I paid the debt anonymously. Ryan celebrated by posting motivational quotes about financial discipline. The irony almost made me laugh. Almost by sunrise, I had reached a decision, a simple one: no more. No more anonymous rescues, no more emergency transfers, no more sacrifices. If they thought I was a pathetic failure, they could survive without the failure's help. For the first time in years, I called my financial manager. "Cancel all future family support payments," I said. There was a long silence. "Are you sure?" I looked out the window. The sun was rising over the city. "Yes, every account, every account." He hesitated. "You've been helping them for a long time." "I know. And if they ask questions," I thought about the laughter from the video call. The jokes, the insults, the casual cruelty, they won't know who to ask. After I hung up, an unexpected feeling settled over me. Not anger, not revenge, relief. For years, I had carried responsibilities that weren't mine. I had spent money trying to buy acceptance that was never for sale. The truth hurt, but it was finally clear. You cannot earn love from people who only value appearances. You cannot force respect from people determined to look down on you. And most importantly, you cannot keep saving people who don't appreciate being saved. Across town, my family was starting another ordinary day. They had no idea the safety net beneath them had disappeared. No idea the person they mocked had quietly been holding everything together. But soon they would find out. And when they did, the truth would hurt far more than anything they had ever said about me. The first signs appeared 2 weeks later. I was sitting in my office when my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Hi, sweetheart. Have you heard anything about that financial assistance program we've been receiving?" It suddenly stopped. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed a simple reply. "No, Mom, sorry." It wasn't a lie. The anonymous trust that had funded their support no longer existed. 3 days later, Melissa called. I almost didn't answer. "Daniel," she said, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. "How have you been?" That alone was suspicious. Melissa never called just to talk. "I'm fine," I replied. There was an awkward pause. "Listen, do you know anyone who invests in small businesses?" I leaned back in my chair. Why, we've had some cash flow problems. Cash flow problems. A polite way of saying the boutique was struggling again. The same boutique I had secretly rescued years earlier. I don't know anyone, I said calmly. Another silence. Then she quickly changed the subject before ending the call. For the first time in my life, I wasn't rushing to save her. A month later, things became worse, much worse. My father called one evening. His voice sounded older than I remembered. "The house needs repairs," he said. "That's unfortunate. We don't have the money right now." I waited. For years, that sentence had been followed by a problem I solved. This time, I remained silent. Eventually, he cleared his throat. "Anyway, I just thought I'd mention it." After we hung up, I sat quietly. Part of me felt guilty, but another part remembered the video call, the laughter, the word pathetic. That part reminded me that helping people and allowing them to use you were two different things. By the third month, panic had started spreading through the family. Melissa's business was behind on rent. Ryan was facing new financial pressure after another failed investment. My parents were juggling overdue bills. The mysterious support that had always appeared during emergencies was gone, and nobody understood why. One Sunday afternoon, I attended a family dinner for the first time in months. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone looked exhausted. Ryan barely touched his food. Melissa constantly checked her phone. My father stared at the table. Eventually, my mother spoke. "I still can't understand who was helping us all these years." The room fell silent. Ryan nodded. "It had to be someone wealthy." Melissa frowned. "I hired a private investigator." I nearly choked on my drink. "You did what?" She shrugged. I wanted answers. And nothing. Whoever it was covered their tracks perfectly. I hid a smile. Years of running a technology company had taught me a thing or two about privacy. Then my father said something unexpected. Whoever helped us cared about this family. Guilt flickered across his face. We never even got the chance to thank them. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ryan sighed. "I guess we took it for granted." The words surprised me, not because they were profound, because they were honest. For the first time, cracks were appearing in the confidence they always wore. The arrogance was fading. Reality was replacing it. As dinner ended, I noticed my mother watching me. There was something different in her expression. Not judgment, not disappointment. Curiosity. As if she were seeing me for the first time. She opened her mouth to say something but stopped. I left shortly afterward. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was my accountant. His voice sounded nervous. "Daniel, we have a problem." My stomach tightened. What happened? There was an odd request related to one of the trust accounts. I froze, and they may be able to trace some of the financial assistance. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The secret I had protected for years was beginning to unravel. And if the trail led where I thought it would, my family was about to discover something that would change everything. They were finally going to learn who had been saving them all along, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 weeks after my accountant's warning, the truth finally surfaced. I knew it had happened the moment my phone started ringing. First my mother, then Melissa, then Ryan. Then my father, 4 missed calls in less than 10 minutes. I stared at the screen without answering. For years, I had been available whenever they needed help. Whenever there was a crisis, I answered immediately. This time, I let them wait. A text message arrived from my mother. "Daniel, please, we need to talk." An hour later, another appeared. "We know it was you." I closed my eyes. The secret was finally gone. A week later, I agreed to meet them at my parents' house. The same house I had quietly saved from foreclosure years earlier. As I walked through the front door, the atmosphere felt completely different. Nobody was smiling, nobody was making jokes, nobody was looking at me with pity. Instead, they looked nervous. Almost ashamed, my father stood first. His shoulders seemed smaller than I remembered. "Thank you for coming." I nodded and sat down. For several moments, nobody spoke. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "Was it really you?" I placed a folder on the coffee table. Inside were records of every payment, transfer, investment, and emergency expense from the last 8 years. Mortgage payments, medical bills, business funding, debt settlements, hundreds of pages. The room became silent as they flipped through the documents. My mother's hands began to shake. Melissa covered her mouth. Ryan stared at the pages as if they were written in another language. My father looked completely stunned. "All this?" He whispered. "You did all this?" "Yes." The word felt strangely simple after carrying the secret for so long. My mother suddenly burst into tears. "Oh, Daniel." I watched quietly, not with satisfaction, not with cruelty, just acceptance. For years I had imagined this moment. I thought it would feel victorious. Instead, it felt sad. My father lowered his head. "We called you a failure. Nobody corrected him. Nobody denied it because everyone knew it was true." "They had for years. We were wrong," he said softly. Ryan looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I don't even know how to apologize." Melissa wiped her face. "I called you pathetic." The word hung heavily in the room, the same word that had changed everything. I nodded. "I heard." Their eyes widened. "You heard the video call." And Melissa whispered every word. The guilt on their faces was immediate. My mother began crying harder. My father couldn't even look at me. Finally, I spoke. "The money was never what hurt." Everyone looked up. "It was realizing that your respect depended on what you thought I had achieved." Silence filled the room. "I spent years trying to earn your approval." My voice remained calm, but I finally realized something. "What?" Ryan asked quietly. I smiled. "I don't need it anymore." Those words hit harder than any accusation ever could, because they were true. For the first time in my life, I wasn't seeking validation from people who refused to see my worth. My father stood and walked toward me. Tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry, son." The apology was genuine. So were the others that followed, and for the first time I believed them. But forgiveness wasn't the same as returning to the old relationship. When they asked whether the financial support would continue, I shook my head. No. Nobody argued. Nobody complained. They understood. The safety net was gone. From now on, they would have to stand on their own. 6 months later, things looked different. My parents adjusted their lifestyle. Ryan learned humility after rebuilding his finances honestly. Melissa managed her business responsibly. And me, I finally found peace, not because my family suffered, not because I exposed them, but because I stopped sacrificing myself for people who didn't appreciate it. In the end, the sweetest revenge wasn't making them feel guilty. It was watching them finally understand my value after I had already learned it myself.